Hi everyone, Mr. Steckler here. So this is a quick video on what Padlet is, how you could possibly use Padlet in your classes, and how I use Padlet. So the first thing is, what is Padlet? Well, Padlet is a digital design space where students can answer questions and they can write responses in a variety of different formats. The different formats there are for Padlet are wall, canvas, stream, grid, and shelf. The format that I prefer to use in my classes is shelf, because when you create shelf, you notice here at the top there are a category, and then students can give their responses down below. In some ways that I tend to use that is if I want every student to have their own category, I will model for them on the top of a Padlet with me, and then I will put my answer, and then I'll show students over here who will have their name up here, and then they will have questions that they will mirror as mine, and they'll put their answers. So one thing that I'm using Padlet for right now is for my new group of students in Computer App Life. I am using it as an icebreaker activity where there are 7 questions, and these questions are there to try and let the students get to know each other. And I think that's really important because, especially in a class where you might not know everyone's name, getting to know each other before we get started into the real depth of the curriculum is critical to learning, how to work together and how to build teamwork. And if you don't know anything about the person, then it's a lot harder to connect and to communicate with them. So this will let the students, using this icebreaker activity, allow them to learn information about each other that they might not have remembered in like a icebreaker activity in the class. So if, for example, you wanted to learn something about Evan over here, and he had spoken but you didn't remember it, you could see and go back to it that he loves basketball, or for Alicia that she loves to draw. So you can go back to this even after the icebreaker activity is done and go back in and remember what the students like and information about them for both the teacher and for other students to learn about each other. The most recent one that we did was we just did question 2. We were doing one icebreaker a day at the beginning of class, and it was to come up with 2 truths and a lie about themselves. So students came up with 2 truths and a lie, and they had a chance to share out loud if they wanted to share out loud, but not everyone is so comfortable, especially at first, speaking out loud. So those who wanted to share out loud did, and we guessed, and when people had guessed the right answer, that person went on their Padlet and they highlighted the answer that ended up being false. And then those students who have not yet gone, next time for their do now, they will highlight the answer that was false once people have had a chance to go through and read all of their answers. So that is how you can use Padlet as an icebreaker activity, but you can also use it as a lesson. So when I teach the design process, I, on the left-hand side, model what their answer should look like. And this is again in the shelf formats. So I model what an answer looks like, I explain to them the problem, and then we start going through the design process. So I have the students read through a little bit of background information, and then once we get to specify requirements, they then have to make a plan for how to actually construct what they're about to do. So they start writing. You can be ensure that the build meets the specified requirements by testing out on everything you need to make sure that it's good to use. They realize that they were about to build something that didn't have enough power, so they're planning out on here, and they can read each other's responses so that if they're not sure what to put, they can kind of get an idea from other students and let those students have their thoughts shine. So it's a really good design space so students can plan through and write and see each other's thoughts. And even if you don't want to participate verbally, you can still participate on the Padlets where your thoughts are still shown. So I have the students go through and they reflect and they talk to each other and they'll leave comments on each other in the Padlets. And then one more thing that I wanted to show you guys that you possibly could do in Padlet is, let's say that you wanted to use this for a math class. There's a bunch of different options, which if you go to the post and you go to the ... menu over here, it will show you all the different options you can do. And you guys can read through all the different options, but one that I want to highlight and how cool it is you can draw on the screen. So let's say you're a math teacher and you gave a math problem that you had to solve, which was maybe 3x plus 6 equals 9. So as the teacher, you can write that problem out, and then you can have the students go through and draw on their screen to solve out that problem. You can really pay attention to the format and make sure that they have like the left side of the equation written versus the right side, and that what you do to one side you must do to the other side, so that the students can go ahead and solve through their questions. They can drop the equal sign down, and they can go ahead and finish solving the problem on the screen. So one thing that's really important about this Padlet is that when a student submits their response over here, they're all posted next to each other. So you'll notice that my drawing pops up over here, and you can title this as your name. So if you were trying to solve a particular problem and you posted up here and you weren't sure if you did it right, and maybe if this wasn't a math question but it was a social studies question, there wouldn't be a way to check. So you can compare your work to everyone else who would have posted for that problem like they did over here, and you can see, oh, everyone has a similar answer to mine. Okay, my answer makes sense. I think I get it. So they can compare their work to each other's in a way that, kind of elevates the use or the purpose of using technology, where if you were to do this on paper, you wouldn't be able to see everyone else's work. But this allows you to, when the students have iPads and we're one-to-one, have everyone's work be shown at the same time, at the same spot. And if you didn't want to use it using this grid layout, then you could use another layout such as a wall, which as soon as a student enters a response, they kind of they go through and it just updates as it's seen. And to be honest, I've not tried these methods just yet, but the ones that I've used that I like the most are wall and shelf in particular for organizing information, wall for just kind of like a stream of information. I guess stream is the same thing as wall, but it's everything in one screen as opposed to wall, which constantly keeps moving. Which, if you remember, at our building meeting happens a couple of months ago that we first got introduced to Padlet, which is where I learned about Padlet and then kind of explored what was there for doing. So that was a good introductory video of what Padlet is, a digital design space, how I use it in my classes, and how you could potentially use it in either like a math class or a social studies class or even an English class where you can have the kids write an answer to a prompt and then reply and read each other's responses. So if you have any other questions, we'll go into more detail about that, but this is it for now. So I hope you guys enjoyed, and until next time.